Rita had always been a woman who lived with passion, even if it had dimmed over time. In her youth, love had been a whirlwind intense and all-consuming, impossible to ignore. But by the time she reached her early 50s, the world seemed to see her differently. The excitement of attention had faded, and mirrors reflected a woman she sometimes struggled to recognize. She was graceful, yes, but invisible in ways that stung more than she expected. After a long marriage ended, Rita found herself at a crossroads. The marriage had been steady, dependable, even comfortable, but passion and desire had quietly vanished. Now free yet wary, she faced a question many women in her age group confront. Could she still be wanted? Could she still feel alive in ways that were not just practical or platonic? The answer arrived unexpectedly one evening while Rita scrolled through a dating platform she had never considered. It was not a place for romance, novels, or fairy tale endings. It was for arrangements, people seeking companionship, attention, and yes, material support. Older men looking for younger partners, younger men drawn to older women, and everything in between. Everything was out in the open. At first, Rita laughed, thinking it was not for her, but curiosity has a way of nudging when the nights are quiet. She created a profile, shared a few polished photos, and wrote just enough about herself to hint at who she was. Within hours, her inbox flooded. Messages arrived from men who were successful, attentive, and generous. Compliments mingled with offers and invitations. Rita realized quickly that the world had not stopped noticing her. It had just changed how it noticed her. One man stood out. Brandon, in his early 60s, successful, confident, and charming. He did not pretend to want anything other than companionship. He valued conversation, laughter, and the rare comfort of understanding another person's loneliness. For Rita, the appeal was not just in his charm, it was in how he made her feel again. Their first meeting was over dinner, casual without pressure. Grace felt it immediately, the difference between polite attention and genuine desire. Brandon's eyes held appreciation, admiration, even longing without judgment. It stirred in her a feeling she had not known she had missed so much. Being wanted not only for who she was, but for the allure she still carried. As their connection grew, so did the perks. Brandon showered her with thoughtful gifts, flowers, and invitations to exquisite restaurants. Shopping trips became a highlight, designer bags, shoes, and dresses that reminded Rita she could still indulge, still enjoy the finer things. Money was not the goal, but in her 50s it became a welcome measure of comfort and stability. Rita wanted to be spoiled, to feel that her desires, sexual, emotional, and material, mattered. And in Brandon, all of those desires could coexist. The relationship was transparent. They both understood the arrangement. Some might dismiss it as transactional, but for Rita it was revitalizing. It was not only about gifts or money, it was about attention, passion, and the thrill of being admired. It was about remembering that desire does not expire with age. And yes, it was about indulgence, the freedom to enjoy luxuries, without guilt to embrace both the sensual and the practical. Gradually, Rita began to recognize something deeper. Beyond the flowers, dinners, and shopping sprees, there was emotional connection. Brandon, too, had his vulnerabilities, his need to be appreciated and understood. In the quiet moments between outings and laughter, they found comfort in each other's presence. Society often misjudges women like Rita, labeling their choices as shallow or transactional. But what Rita discovered was far richer. It was not only about money or material gifts. It was about reclaiming vitality, embracing desire, and asserting the right to live fully regardless of age. To be seen, to be desired, to be indulged, these were not superficial wants. They were the markers of a life she refused to let pass quietly. And so Rita continued to navigate this world with honesty, curiosity, and courage. The perks, the dinners, gifts, and shopping were all part of a larger truth, that at her age, passion and pleasure could coexist with stability and indulgence. That desire in all its forms was still hers to claim. As weeks turned into months, Rita found herself drawn more deeply into her connection with Brandon. What began as curiosity and the thrill of attention had blossomed into something richer. Their time together was never rushed or forced. Evenings spent at elegant restaurants were followed by quiet walks, where conversation flowed easily. Brandon listened with a patience few people had offered her in years. He asked questions not to judge, but to understand, and in his presence, Rita felt her own voice and desires valued in ways she had forgotten. The gifts and indulgences remained a part of their relationship, but they were no longer the only measure of connection. Designer handbags and shopping trips were fun and luxurious, but it was the intimacy behind the gestures that left the deepest impression. Rita began to notice how Brandon's touch lingered a little longer, how his laughter drew her out of the quiet spaces inside herself, and how desire between them was similar and unapologetic. She realized that pleasure and security could exist side by side. Sex became an exploration, not just of physical longing, but of trust and understanding. For Rita, Brandon's attentiveness went beyond passion. He noticed what made her smile, what made her sigh, and how her moods shifted with subtle changes in his attention. Every intimate moment carried the weight of recognition and desire. She was reminded that at her age, her sensuality had not faded. It had matured, deepened, and demanded acknowledgement. Financial stability and generosity were still part of the arrangement. Rita enjoyed the comfort of knowing that Brandon could provide experiences she had once only dreamed of. Spa weekends, fine dining, and spontaneous shopping sprees reminded her that desire could be playful as well as sensual. She no longer felt guilty for wanting both emotional connection and material pleasure. Both were valid and necessary for her happiness. Yet even with the comfort and indulgence, there were moments of reflection. Rita noticed how societal judgment lurked in her thoughts. She wondered what others might think about a woman of her age seeking a man willing to spoil her. But those thoughts were fleeting. In Brandon, she had found permission to embrace life fully, to prioritize her needs and desires without shame. She realized that seeking attention and care was not weakness. It was self-respect and self-love. The bond between them continued to grow in quiet ways. Simple gestures carried weight. A thoughtful text in the morning, a shared joke, or the way Brandon remembered small details about her life. Rita discovered that her own giving was just as important as receiving. She could care for him in return with warmth, support, and laughter. The arrangement that began as transactional had transformed into a dance of equal fulfillment. Rita understood now why women like her pursued relationships with men like Brandon. It was not only about money or gifts. It was about recognition, desire, and vitality. It was about reclaiming the ability to feel wanted and cherished at a stage of life when society often suggests that passion is over. The money, the indulgences, and the shopping were perks that enhanced the experience, but did not define it. The heart of the connection was being seen, desired, and understood. Through her time with Brandon, Rita discovered a freedom she had not felt in years. She could embrace her sensuality openly and without apology. She could enjoy material comforts and the thrill of being spoiled, while also nurturing emotional intimacy. Every laugh, every touch, and every shared secret reinforced that her life, her pleasure, and her desires still mattered. And so, Rita continued to explore this chapter of her life with courage and joy. In Brandon, she found not only a partner, but a mirror of her own worth. She realized that at any age, passion could coexist with stability, that desire was timeless, and that being indulged in every sense was not a crime, but a celebration. For Rita, the world of connection and pleasure was hers to claim fully. As her relationship with Brandon continued, Rita began to confront unexpected feelings. The connection had brought excitement, indulgence, and desire, but it also stirred questions she had not anticipated. Could a relationship built on arrangements and generosity also hold genuine emotional depth? Could she allow herself to trust and be vulnerable again? There were moments of tension. Brandon, though attentive and caring, had his own world of responsibilities and habits. Sometimes his generosity felt like a reminder of imbalance. Rita caught herself wondering if she wanted him, or the comfort and attention he provided. She questioned whether her desires for gifts, shopping, and indulgence overshadowed the more fragile parts of intimacy. Yet, these doubts did not diminish the connection. They deepened it. Rita realized that acknowledging her feelings, even the conflicted ones, was part of reclaiming her life. She began to understand that wanting both security and passion, material pleasures and emotional closeness, was not contradictory. It was human. It was honest. Brandon sensed these shifts in her mood. He never pressured her, but he offered reassurance in subtle ways. A hand on hers during dinner, a quiet compliment, or a weekend away that combined adventure and comfort. Slowly, Rita learned to navigate the delicate balance of desire, dependence, and independence. She found that leaning into vulnerability did not weaken her. It strengthened the bond between them. The emotional intensity of their connection intertwined with the physical and material aspects. Shopping trips and gifts were no longer only perks. They became shared experiences that symbolized care and attention. Intimate moments were richer because they carried both passion and understanding. Rita realized that what she had once thought of as transactional had evolved into something layered and meaningful. Rita also reflected on herself more deeply than she had in years. She acknowledged her own needs openly, without shame. She wanted to feel desired, to be admired, and yes, to be spoiled. She wanted intimacy that was tender and passionate, and she wanted to enjoy the fruits of generosity without guilt. Brandon's presence gave her the freedom to recognize and embrace these desires. This self-awareness brought clarity. Rita did not have to choose between emotional fulfillment and material comfort. Both were part of her life, and both were valid. She understood that society's judgment, while present, did not define her. Desire, pleasure, and self-care were not crimes. They were acts of self-respect. In quiet evenings and shared laughter, Rita discovered that real connection could coexist with indulgence. The trust, passion, and attention she experienced with Brandon reminded her that life was still full of possibilities. She learned to celebrate her own worth and to accept joy in all its forms. By the end of this chapter in her life, Rita had not only reclaimed her sensuality and desire, but also her agency. She understood that relationships could be complex, fulfilling, and playful all at once. She embraced the thrill of being desired, the comfort of being cared for, and the joy of being spoiled without apology. Rita's journey was a lesson in balance, courage, and authenticity. She realized that at her age, she could have it all: passion, indulgence, emotional depth, and stability. She could be seen, desired, and celebrated. In Brandon, she found not only enjoyment and generosity, but a reflection of her own power and worth. And that realization, above all else, was priceless. In the months that followed, Rita fully embraced the life she had chosen. The connection with Brandon had grown into something she had never expected. It was no longer simply about attention, gifts, or indulgence. It was about being seen and appreciated for who she was, inside and out. Rita discovered that true fulfillment came from balance. She could enjoy luxury, shopping, and thoughtful surprises without guilt, while also savoring passion, intimacy, and emotional closeness. Each moment with Brandon reminded her that desire did not fade with age. She was allowed to want pleasure, excitement, and stability all at once. The joy she felt was quiet but profound. Shared laughter over dinner, the spark of attraction during their evenings together, and the small acts of generosity that made her feel cherished all became part of her daily happiness. The world outside might judge, but Rita no longer let its voice define her. She had learned to prioritize herself and her own satisfaction. Rita also realized how much she had grown. She was confident, self-aware, and unafraid to express her needs. She understood that being desired was not vanity, and accepting generosity was not weakness. With Brandon, she experienced a relationship that honored her desires, her independence, and her worth. Their bond was playful, passionate, and secure. Each shared moment was a celebration of life, desire, and connection. The material pleasures, the shopping trips, gifts, and fine dining were not just perks. They were symbols of care, attention, and the right to enjoy life fully. In Brandon, Rita found a partner who understood her complexities, her cravings, and her joy. He offered not only stability and indulgence, but respect, attention, and genuine connection. She, in turn, gave warmth, laughter, and companionship that strengthened their bond. Together, they had created a relationship that defied expectations and embraced authenticity. Rita's journey had taught her a powerful lesson. At any age, passion, pleasure, and fulfillment are possible. Desire is not reserved for the young, and self-love includes recognizing and embracing what brings joy. She had claimed the life she wanted, fully aware that she deserved every bit of excitement, indulgence, and affection she received. As Rita looked forward, she did so with confidence, joy, and curiosity. Her connection with Brandon had reminded her that life was meant to be enjoyed in all its layers: emotional, sensual, and material. She had found a way to have it all and to savor it without apology. And in that realization, Rita experienced a kind of freedom she had never known before. She was desired, she was celebrated, and she was fully alive. The story of her life at this stage was not about compromise or limitation. It was about embracing every gift, every thrill, and every desire with courage, grace, and joy. Rita had reclaimed her life, and she would never let it slip away again. Relationships do not need perfection. They need patience, presence, playfulness, and care. Every choice you make, every small act of love, builds the connection between you and your partner. Love is not found. It is built one choice, one laugh, one thought at a time. What will you focus on today? Which small action can you do right now to strengthen your connection?